Morning, everyone. We now rise back from recess. And up next, we have the Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services. The DFIMS for the current fiscal year had received 986,673 for its personnel. And just like all other agencies in the municipality, all operation funds were designated to the mayor, and so none was given to any specific agency. The department had submitted a budget request for personnel at 870,592, but the governor ended up proposing 1,022,843. And I, I can only assume that this was calculated at a 90% pay period for all employees, including first responders. But it is a consensus of the legislature and the administration that all um, law enforcement personnel and first responders shall be given the 100% allocation. Yesterday, the House had a session and had passed their fiscal year 24 budget, which will be transmitted to the Senate if not already. According to the actions taken by the House, they've reduced the municipality by 29,000, and these span across 6 agencies with a reduction of not more than 5,000 or not more than 6,600. And then these could be simply just miscalculation on personnel, but operations remain the same with the OPA fee allotted to each agency. Some of the big ticket items under the operational expenses that the department had proposed includes 60,000 for fuel, 70,000 for travel expenses, 20,000 each for repair and maintenance and communications. And then it looks like they need 60,000 for building. As we stated in our prior budget hearings, um, while we may not have funds to cover some of the infrastructure projects, we may be able to assist in finding additional resources that could be used to address capital improvement projects. And so we'll hear from the deputy commissioner what are some of the projects that are planned for next fiscal year, and we can see how we can address that in the delegation level. However, I would like to hand over the floor now to Deputy Commissioner Maritita to just go over their budget submission and state their requests based on their submission. At this time, you have the floor.
This is Usman, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all of you, Senator Poe and Senator Dan. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Glenn Maratita, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner, Resident Deputy Commissioner for Defense Rota. And sitting next to me is Assistant Chief Ron Ogo, who handles the administrative side of the department. It's unfortunate that my operations chief, which is Assistant Chief Joe Hokuk, is not able to join us today. Unfortunately, he's leaving off island on a personal matter. So I extend his apology for not being here to take any questions for that matter. Moving on, Mr. Chairman, and as you stated about the personnel, not much of a concern on our end. I guess we were blessed that this number climbs, which is a blessing for us. And some of the areas of concern that was brought to the attention of, I believe, you and Senator Dan has already been addressed. I am truly grateful for that. And I guess this is not much of a concern, but just something that I like to point out. Maybe it was inadvertently inserted in the budget by the governor's proposal, but I want to reflect on record that one of the employees within the defense, the Captain Clint Barcinas, was put down as a fire crew supervisor. So I thought I'd just put that on record because the person that actually deserves to, recognition on something that he progressed by climbing up the ladder of success. So the area of responsibility being a captain is far greater than being a fire crew supervisor. So that is just something that I like for this body to hear and again leave on record. Not much of a concern again as far as personnel is concerned, but I want to move on to our operations. And before I outline some of the areas that we like to draw your attention to our concern, I just want to point out that DFAMS, just like inside Panantinian, we have two revolving fund account. We have the ambulance fee and we have the fire safety code. So this is the two revolving fund that really is helping us a lot. But we are also mindful that under the ambulance fee, there are some restrictions when it comes to the usage of those funding. And I like to reference 1 CMC subsection 2546, um, se- section 2546, I believe B. It's in there, and just like the meeting that we had with OPA, I believe a couple of months ago, this is one of the area that they pointed out because we are actually also required to submit a expenditure report upon usage or drawdown of those funds at least 30 days after. So we are keeping in mind uh, of that section, and we are cognizant in following that provision of the law. And of course, with the fire safety code also, which is under Title 72, I believe, on the administrative code, and it's under Chapter 72, that's 10, is where the rules and regulation was established, and all these kind of things, the wonderful things that would govern us and provide us with guidance on how to administer and perhaps move on to the enforcement portion of it. But we are truly grateful that we have these two sources of funding that's really helping us a lot. And I thank the legislatures for making this happen. We are blessed again on that regard. But for the most part, again, I don't want to be redundant on the issue. The three most important things that we're actually looking at as far as operation is concerned is fuel and lubrication, repair, maintenance, and travel. Uh, my dear senators, as you all know, that defense, we do have a fleet, and the fleet that we have also involves machines. I mean, we're talking about fire trucks, and ambulance. That at least in our position, we want to make certain that these machines, these vehicles, remain a priority for us. Our number one obligation is really to save lives and save property. So we always keep that in mind. Now, as far as travel is concerned, in this kind of work, honesty, training never ends. We have to make room for improvement and allow our guys to be where they need to be, other than operating, below standards, substandards, which is, not recommended at all. But this is something that we want to open doors for them and, attain what they need to attain in order for them to climb the ladder of success, the rank and file. So we always keep that in mind again. Uh, I know I'll be on the hot seat when it comes to communication and so forth. So I was going to go down in that area, but I would prefer that I would take questions from the members, and so that you know we meet ourselves halfway when it comes to the areas of concern. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I would like to yield my time back to the panel.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Just to clarify a couple of things you brought up. Um, Captain Bersinos, is that his current is it title?
His current title is actually captain, but it was labeled as a fire crew supervisor. It's not harmful, but uh, it is my obligation to make certain that this body understands that what we're looking at on the paper is actually not consistent with what he has.
But the title, but the pay
I would think so.
is the same.
Yep.
Okay. Um, the what was the statute that you identified for the ambulance revolving fund? One CMC. Or
It,
what's after
it,
that?
it falls under 1 CMC, Division 2, subsection 2546, which is the executive branch, Division 2.
And you said you are limited in how to use those funds, correct?
That's correct. And I believe it falls under uh, 2546B. It should be.
Um, how much do you have in that account?
We have a little over 11,000 right now.
And so you are wanting to have more flexibility in how to use those funds, or
Correct, because this funding is actually committed or dedicated specifically for the division of emergency medical services. So under Public Law 18-73, I believe, which creates defense, along those lines, it also says that defense must create or at least have 5 divisions, and that is emergency services, uh, fire prevention and arson investigation, emergency medical services, logistic and support, and administration. So ambulance fee falls under the category of the emergency medical services. So the use is pretty much restrictive. We cannot, for instance, as much as we want to tap into that account to do some travel relating to work, but it must also be within the confine of the medical emergency services, which is, it could be the person will be sending for training purpose under EMS or to that effect. But it cannot be generally used just to fund travel under fire, just to go there, recipient to attend meeting and whatnot. If you understand what I'm saying.
yeah. Oh, I see it now. And so I can just ask the LA to just make note of that in case we need to do a provision um, to suspend the statute to allow you to use it for other purposes. And then the fire safety code fund, that's through regulation. Title 72, you said,
Last time I checked, I believe it was
not through statute.
Title 72, not through statute, but I
Okay.
think it's through Title 72, the administrative code.
Do you know how much you have in there?
Right now, it's showing on munis that we have 23.
But do you have? Are there any limitations as to?
Similar in nature.
Okay.
The use is very restrictive.
Okay. So right now, what are you using to fund your operations?
We generally tap into both accounts.
So that's where you're getting your fuel for like for this
Correct.
fiscal year.
Correct.
Okay. Maybe the other members can ask about the communications part, but just going back to your requests, the 60,000 that you're requesting for buildings, what is that? What would that be used for?
I'm going to try and sum it up real quick, but the intent of that amount that we were requesting for is actually to build a temporary bay, not a bay, I would say a shelter to house one of the ambulance and the Seaburn truck up in Station 8, which is in São Paulo. Our goal is to open up Station 8 on a 24/7 basis. Uh, Everybody in Rota knows that most of the population is up in São Paulo area, and as the management team decides that it will be ideal, it will be conducive, and the right approach to establish a 24/7 office up there. So again, it goes back to our main mission, which is to save life and property, and by having a station up in São Paulo, that would eliminate about half of the response time, considering the fact that our operation is now down at Station 7. That would take at least a minimum of 15 minutes to be up in São Paulo. We can eliminate that by 7 minutes or more. So the goal is to reestablish an office up there and make it a 24/7 functional office for operations. Because right now, Station 8 is mainly used for administrative purposes.
Yeah. So the housing, that's not a new issue. I know I've heard it on several occasions. I think it was also submitted to whether it be grants or CIP office to see if that's something that can be included. Do you know anything to that regard as far as it trying to be covered through other resources?
I'm not familiar with any proposal, but I know we had a few discussions about having to explore other options, and yes, we are also looking into those areas.
Okay. Another thing, right around the time the Station 8 was opened, one of the concern also was that we may not have enough personnel to staff that because some firefighters will need to be EMT certified. Is there still that issue?
NFPA compliant, yes, we are mindful of that, but again, nothing can be done. We can always go back and revisit the schedule and look into those areas of concern, and again request from especially the grantors where we get funding from, how we can waive those requirements, considering the locations that we're at and the population that we serve, and of course, what are the do's and don'ts, and then we'll take it from there. But I know there's window for those kind of things.
Okay. Do you have any vehicles right now that are inoperable um, that require the additional repair needed to bring them back in operation? Your ambulance is
Mr. Chairman and members, we have one ambulance that is inoperable, and we have three vehicles that is inoperable. And again, from the past few meetings that we had with the command, it's highly likely that defense would invest in an additional dollar to get them up and running because of the state, the condition that it is today. We highly recommend that we just take it off our inventory and find ways to see if we can get a replacement for those vehicles.
so you said you had one inoperable ambulance, but how many do you have in operation?
We have to.
Two that are current. Okay. And the fire trucks?
Fire truck, I would say, is fairly in condition at the moment.
But you have how many
One.
we have? One.
And one Seaburn truck.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, I'll open up the floor to the members. I recognize Senator Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Buenas, no, Commissioner. May I ask about the status of the emergency repeater system funding? Is the funding still there, and that we're trying to install it up in Savannah?
From the last conversation that I had with OGM representative Mr. Dwayne here in Rota, and of course the two chiefs, um, the funding source remains as is today. But then again, we came across a roadblock by having a couple of bidders that submit exorbitant amount than what was awarded through the OIA.
So, what is this? Can you repeat, please? You came across
The money is still there,
there.
and from what I understand, there was an ITB that was
Oh,
done. There were at least couple of bidders that submit their proposals, but what it is with the proposal is that I think the lowest bidder is at least 50% greater of
oh,
what's being awarded. So
oh.
it is something that I believe OGM and that Messon have to come back and sit down and reassess this situation. And then the plan is to try and re-announce the ITB
Okay.
and see if we can move forward with, you know.
I asked that,
Okay.
and that's good to know. We'll follow up, but I asked that because DPS yesterday um, informed the committee that they have issues with coverages on their radio on the island. So, with this installation, would that kind of like significantly improve the radio coverage on the island, Commissioner?
Pretty much would do so. And just to add on to that, Senator Manglonia, when I was when I left public safety back in 2006, you know, our radio communication system was working extremely fine. We never had issues. When I stepped foot at that office 13 years later on 2019, one of the areas of concern during our command meeting was that the communication. And so I was perplexed and a bit confused that we are in the modern world and you know with the technology and everything, and how could this happen when you know as emergency responders and you know law enforcement officers and the stakeholders, you know, they understand that communication is one of the most important tools out there. But you know, for some reason, unknown reason to me, uh, and excuse me for lack of a better word, but is whether be is it neglected or whatnot, or issue has been you know tabled. I really don't know, Senator. I can answer you that, but that's what I can tell you today.
Okay, so if that's installed, DPS would join in with defense, right?
That is our goal. We want to make this as a collaborative effort.
Okay.
We want to get the stakeholders together.
Okay. So what about your radios? Are they working for defense now?
We are in the same situation, Senator, with DPS.
Okay.
But we're you know we're taking baby steps. We're taking the initiative because many of the grants that are available out there, you know, points more towards having defense be a recipient to those grants.
So you have applied for the grants?
This is one of it. You know, Deputy Mesngon and Chief Ogu initiated groundwork in Minatawgi area just to extend that. But during that period, I mean, while they're doing an extension to the communication project, At the same time, they were also applying for the grants, which is phase one of the grant was awarded through OIA, and that's what we're talking about today.
So the phase one would be the equipment, the radio equipment.
Phase one will be to start work on the ground. But what I meant by Deputy Mesngon and Chief Ogo and the team at Defense, what they have done is to leave an impression to the grantor that, hey, we need help, so we're doing the groundwork at this time. So, all those kind of things.
So we appreciate maybe kind of like an update, Commissioner. We appreciate like where do you want to go as far as satisfying your communication needs, radio as well as even 911, right? That do you guys receive 911 or is it direct channel right to DPS?
The system is still with DPS, but again,
So they will transfer it. They will connect 911 to you if it's a report of a fire or
they will normally call us.
EMS. They'll call you.
So, those are the things, my senator, that we're trying to avoid. So we want to get direct communication from the callers and,
Like if they
get
call
accurate
911
information.
and if it's about fire, they just forward the 911 to your
It
counter.
it is not the case, sir. They will receive the call and then they will notify our office what the call may be. So by the time it gets to us, I'm afraid that we may be mixing apples and oranges. So that is the gist about having a direct line of communication.
So I guess we just need kind of like an update on where you want to be and where are we now and how do we get there so that we can help follow up with OGM and the other grants that you have on this matter on the radio because it's kind of alarming yesterday when we heard about the situation and when it comes to emergency every second matters, right? And so it might mean between life and death for the person. And so we appreciate the concern here. And by the way, the issue with the antenna is still an issue in Sabana, right? So actually the legal counsel is looking at that legislation because I plan to introduce a vetoed bill. For some reason it was an issue of there was some legal technical issue. So hopefully if we can get that passed, the emergency repeater can be installed. And but then again, that's an issue of funding also, as you mentioned, that there's probably a difference there between the budget and what was being offered. No, so that's why we need the update on that so that we can follow up where to supplement that. But going back, Commissioner, on your Sinapalu station, I remember 7 years ago there was a design already done for Sinapalu, and it was supposedly to be built somewhere near the courthouse. There was a design already. Is that something that you seriously want to consider? Because that was actually, if I am not mistaken, for DPS and for defense. So if that is something that you want to revisit and the plan is there, and we have money from 702, and if you can update that, if you think that because the population center has moved up to Sinapalu, and if you seriously think that we need that, then it's something that you can revisit and discuss with our mayor and the municipal council, and if they can support that, we can make changes to the plan and support that as a CIP project rather than going to extension after extension, right? I mean, why don't we go to a new facility, and it doesn't have to be at the present location if that's not a sufficient spacing there you have. So can you revisit that and share with the delegation your thoughts? May I ask how much did you use on fuel last year? How much?
Fuel consumption, Senator, I don't have that with me right
You
now,
don't
but
know.
I can get back to you on that.
So you got assistance also from the mayors or others for fuel?
In most cases, we try to help each other out, you know.
So can you just let us know how much you we want? I'm concerned about DPS and fire as far as their fuel needs.
Most definitely,
Yeah,
Senator.
basta. Thank you, Chairman.
So if I might just respond to the earlier inquiry that you're asking for regarding the communication, Senator, I want to point out also that the award, we initially get an award from the maintenance assistance program. And then we have a subsequent award for the communication again through the technical assistance program. But, you know, having to explain the details, I would prefer that I direct your attention to Mr. Epi Cabrera. He is more knowledgeable as far as those distributions and everything. So, I mean, we've been in constant communication, at least with through Deputy Mason to us, and that you know,
But I guess my point is we want to know what you need, so that then we can match it with what AP is telling us.
and I was getting there, Senator, because I was going to point out that at least we have these two phases, and to gather more information, AP would be the right person. And on top of that, we were up in Saipan last week for our command meeting. We had the opportunity to sit down with also Director Warren from CHCC. There was an award also that was given to his office, I guess, or CHCC, and he expressed his interest in having to collaborate, you know, on this project and submit that he's willing to see what else is needed and that maybe through this grant, uh, in hopes that he can throw in an additional funding to address some of the areas that we may have. And again, we are still in the talks. We're going to move forward. We want to approach Homeland Security and see what they can do, because these are the stakeholders, and we want to talk to Director Ed and see what else we can do. So we're trying to put everybody together. So thank you, Senator, for the opportunity.
Chairman, a little bit a side issue, but kind of related. Let's say there is an emergency service that we need to accommodate a patient from Rota to Nebu Hospital or an emergency to Guam. Do you have a direct contact with the military that you can call right away and get them to come to Rota to send somebody at 2 in the morning to Guam?
No, Senator, I think it's under the purview of the hospital and Homeland.
Or that's something that I hope that maybe through your effort, I think we need to get a handle on that, because uh, a, an incident 2 3 months ago, the hospital was like calling, and then it's like, do we need to have a standard operating procedure, right? So that we can have an understanding with the military, so that if there's an actual emergency, do we need the mayor to sign off or somebody, so that we don't need, I mean, they call me in the middle of the night to call the military. I don't think they need to call any of us. I think there should be a standard procedure that if the hospital, then the mayor, and then if they call the military, we should ask beforehand what do they require, so that they know that it's a real emergency. So I hope that there's a procedure. And I mentioned this because the same thing with Saipan. There was a situation also where, you know, uh, a patient had to be sent to Guam, and nobody knows what to do. Even at the hospital, they're not aware. And I keep emphasizing this, that there should be a standard procedure. So if there really is a dire need to send somebody to Guam, just a call from you or the mayor, it doesn't have to be the mayor, but the mayor can acknowledge or somebody, but so that they acknowledge that a phone call from this person, he's the one, this person can attest to the emergency nature of the phone call, right? So I appreciate this is all about dealing with emergency, and sometimes, a patient may not make it because it took another day to send the patient. So I appreciate if this is an issue you can make also a priority for our patients that need to be sent off island in the middle of the night. Thank you.
Duly noted, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Paul. I recognize Senator Mendiola.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to just talk about a little bit of the issue that Senator Paul had just mentioned, and absolutely, I think it's correct, Senator Paul, that we need to look at the SOP on medevac. I know currently that there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the purview of medevac lies with the hospital based on the mission. And the reason, and I'd like to just clarify this, and the reason is that the only person that can determine whether a patient can be medevac is the doctor, and that's why that SOP lies with the hospital. The mission of the fire department is really mainly triage, to just make sure that that patient, that sick individual gets to the hospital as quickly as possible. I know that none of the fire department is certified paramedic to do anything further than just making sure that vitals and everything are collected and passed on. And this connects also with radio situation. It connects to our ability to communicate. So I believe that absolutely Senator Paul is correct that SOP maybe needs to be resonated throughout the other agencies to include DPS, fire, homeland, so that it's one specific what to do in case of, let's say we run into a crash where we know that the individual, based on just our observation, we know the individual needs medevac. We can already start making that assessment and start to push that information out and start the pre-coordination based on that, rather than waiting for us to drive 7 minutes and then making that, or waiting for the doctor to make that coordination. I think it's an essential piece of work to come and collaborate and come up with an SOP where the whole emergency responders are in collaboration. So I agree with Senator Paul. However, I do want to point out that currently the way it stands is that SOP, it lies with the hospital, correct? And the hospital determines whether the patient needs a medevac based on the doctor's professional assessment. So I just wanted to point that out.
Can I just follow up on that? That's a good point. But I mentioned this because a lot of times in the middle of the night, the hospital relies on the doctor, and so the doctor is the one talking to the military person on Guam, and sometimes our doctors are new; they do not know that the military is ready and willing to do it in the middle of the night, and they wouldn't know how to be very convincing. So that's why I had to call the doctor also on Rota and say, Doc, do not be shy. Do not be, if you think the patient needs to go to Guam, tell the military, I want you to come now. Kind of like having to teach him how to be convincing. So if you have a new doctor or one of those, doctors, they rotate, he wouldn't know how to do it. And even if the RD were to assign, it's not somebody that's consistent, right? So we need a local person who's here every day, right? That knows how to deal with them, and already there's an agreement between Rota Mayor and the military that this is our key office, so that we don't depend on the doctor and the resident director in the middle of the night, maybe busy, and say, okay, doc, just call this number in Guam. It should be a more formal process, and the military is clear that this person speaks for the hospital, for the emergency people, and and for the mayor. So that's all. I just want to mention that. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
if I may chime in real quick. So yeah, I agree for the most part, senators. And I was thinking off my head that maybe we can start off with somewhere, such as revisiting the Medivac protocol. And from there, maybe we can create a draft to incorporate within that Medivac protocol by establishing those SOPs. It could be a start, but I just have to get to with the experts down at the hospital to find out more.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Next one is I know you mentioned about provisions of expending funds under the revolving funds. And something I just like for you guys to kind of look at and maybe or communicate with the commissioner. Under Public Law 1873, Section 104, Part B and C. And I like to read this out just for maybe you can help me decipher this information. It says to establish and manage the Fire Safety Code revolving fund for each senatorial district, which shall be expended continuously without further appropriation for the specific purpose of regulating and enforcing the provision of the Department of Fire and EMS to ensure uninterrupted emergency services. So this is the Fire Safety Code revolving fund. Now the CNMI Ambulance Fee Act of 2000, Part C, it says to enforce and manage the CNMI Ambulance Fee Act of 2000 for each senatorial district, which shall be expended continuously without further appropriation for the specific purpose of regulating and enforcing the provision of the Department of Fire and EMS to ensure uninterrupted emergency services to the community. I just read that because I remember that this is really the basis where we just kind of make decisions and try and spend funds. For example, moving funds to try and get down vehicles fixed because we want to ensure uninterrupted emergency services. So I just like to point that out. Another thing that I wanted to ask is that if we had to reduce, and I know Senator Poe asked about what is your annual fuel cost. So if we were to reduce that cost, what is the baseline or what is the ideal? Of course, it's nothing at this point is ideal for reducing anything, but in operations. But I just wanted to know, since you guys provide emergency services, and maybe you can provide this to us at a later date when you get your average annual expense on fuel. And again, we can't predict this because emergency is not something that we plan for. So, but if we were to reduce fuel, because I'm looking at 60,000 here, what is ideal for the department? And again, you don't have to answer pending your fuel analysis on the last fiscal year. Just something that maybe the members here can use to make a determination on what's the reduction.
It's okay, Senator Mendiola, nothing to hide here. But how did we arrive at 60,000 really came at a consensus by having to get the two chiefs and the folks below them, and they provide those important piece of information that 5,000 a month of fuel would be ideal in terms of operation. But again, like I said, we need to be very conservative. So, we agree that, at 5,000 a month, we arrive at 60,000, but this number varies depending on what season we're at. And this is where, again, subsequent to the fuel consumption, this is where, we normally see checks on a, 4 digits because we incur over time. Really, it's beyond our control. But just to answer your question in the simplest form, that is the calculation that we base ourselves based on what is written on the proposal.
Thank you for that. And last but not least, and I'm sure that a lot of this stuff, or a lot of the down vehicle, the station situation, a lot of these are just inherited, for example, the down vehicle. I know that vehicle has been down for many years, and it's just for example, transmission issue. It's not just $1,000 just to get transmission to repair a vehicle. So I understand that, but I do want to ask that should there be funding for what is the amount that you guys can see fit for trying to repair some of these vehicles to try and get it operational?
I can probably use one of the trucks up there, the Nissan truck, which we're experiencing transmission problem, and other areas, a lot of problem. So from the last information we had, just to get a new transmission would cost somewhere between 6 to 7,000, and this is not including shipment. At that rate, substantial amount of money to be invested on that truck. I prefer to tow that truck to DPW and find myself, ways to get a new vehicle, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And that's it for now. I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any members have anything before I close out with the questions? All right. So before we excuse you, Dep Commissioner, if I can just request from your agency, maybe an exact estimate or close to an exact cost of how much it would be to erect the housing unit for the ambulance, and so we can try to see if there are capital improvement projects that we can use to address that. And before I excuse you, I'd like to recognize a fiscal analyst.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo back to Senator Manglonia about his inquiry on the actual expenditures incurred by the defense of Rota for FY 2022. Based on the governor's budget submittal for FY 2024, it's included a column there for actual expenditures for FY 2022 and FY 2021. So FY 2022, the defense incurred approximately $20 million and $20,000. I'm sorry. FY 2021, approximately $11,129. So we averaged these two out for the past 2 years, approximately $15.6 thousand. So I just want to bring that up
For the fuel,
for the fuel. Yeah.
but that's very low, right? That's less than 1,200 a month for fuel.
Would this be actual on general fund? They may have another like ARPA back then that would have
Oh, yeah.
probably been used to address some.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that is one contributing factor that this number actually that low, because this is, I believe, is during the pandemic, and we're also getting other
Assistance,
resources
right.
from other resources
Oh,
to accommodate us with the fuel. But if we were to borne that cost, it would be somewhere between that area.
Yeah. What's your average response? I guess how often do you get dispatched out to whether it be fire or ambulance on a monthly basis?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman, but I don't have it on a monthly basis, but I certainly will provide your office with that. But I can give you, based on an annual data that was collected. So for instance, from 2021 to 2022, October 2021 to September 22, we received approximately 35 emergency response calls. We receive non-responsive calls of about 40. uh, and about 10 patient refusal calls, and that's for the last fiscal year. From October last year to present, so far we had an emergency response calls of about 45. We have about 39 for non-emergency, and we have about 18 of the patient refusal and 2 cancel routing.
Okay, thank you for that. And then one more thing, can you help me understand how the ambulance fee is assessed and how do you get payment for that?
I stand corrected, but normally the biller will deposit uh, the charges on a specific account, and then when those when those things are done, am I following you on that
No,
question?
no,
Or
like when you transport a patient, who gets charged, and then how does that money get into your revolving account?
transporting a patient normally, who gets charged is the carrier for that person, the insurance carrier. What happens is that the hospital claims the billing, and then they deposit it into a specific account. And then what normally happens is that, Saipan will track that based on where the response is, whether it be Tinian, Rota, or Saipan, and then they separate that amount and they transfer it to the sub account that was embedded on the law 18 to 73, or the account that I gave you earlier, 2546, Section A.
And are you owed anything based on your logs of how many responses you've done, and if those funds have been deposited into your account? Do you know if that's something that you would keep accounting of? So like I transported Senator Dennis, so that one transport, will you see it in your account within the next 30, 60, 90 days, or who's in charge of collection, if you didn't get that payment? And so is there some accountability in trying to get the payment for that fee, that service?
Absolutely, we have paper trails, and then again, like I said, the biller, which is the hospital, will follow up on those.
Do you know if you're owed anything?
I can't provide you with an accurate information, but I can back to you on that.
Allow me to chime in. I think this is something that I'm familiar with, and I just like to, and I know that the deputy commissioner probably will not throw Saipan under the bus, given the fact that we're trying to ask Saipan for help. So the way the process works is simply we submit the billing through a program through their iPad, and Saipan recognizes this. They do the billing process, and then they collect it in Saipan, and then it goes to Saipan account, central account, and then from there, it is pushed out to Rota and Tinian based on their logs. The problem is that, and I understand that this is what you're trying to say, but of course you're always trying to avoid, getting into an entanglement with, especially we're pleading for funds. But what happens is that you then wait for the mercy of the commissioner currently, or to assign that funding over to Rota, saying, you know what, there's $8,000 in EMS collection that is owed to Rota and Tinian. Okay, I'm gonna sign this transfer over. So I understand that there is a waiting period, and based on the question that the chairman asked, there is accountability. That's not the issue. It's just, of course, it takes some time to kind of go through the billing process and ensure that everything is collected. Then it is then passed to the municipalities. So there is some delays, and I'm sure there is some O's currently, but it's not because Saipan is not wanting to transfer that fund. It's more of just them ensuring that there is or the bill is collected upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. Yeah, I guess I'm more concerned of just ensuring that, if the hospital does build Medicaid or whatever insurance company, that DFEMS actually collects its share. I understand, the situation that CHCC is in, but sometimes if the collector is not going after them, then they'll try to buy some time. But if someone from defense is saying, look, we've transported 100 patients throughout the CNMI. Where's my 100 times X amount of whatever that fee is, right? And so, I just wanted to ensure that the, at least Rota has a proper accounting of what is owed to Rota's account, and then if anything, if this is like indigent care, maybe that's something that you would have to write off eventually or something like to that effect. But just ensuring that, even if the money is still sitting in SIPEN, the overall SIPEN account waiting to be transferred, as long as the money's within DFEM, so that DFEMs can actually use that to address some of the needs that are lacking through the general fund. And so there has been a push throughout the entire executive branch, even for next fiscal year, to utilize revolving fund accounts. But if the money's not coming to you, then that's where the issue lies: is who's collecting this money or who's in charge of trying to collect these monies. And so if CCC is not remitting, then that's an issue, right? That's something that we can try to address in bringing CCC forward and say, look, in order for DFEMS to continue to service its vehicles in order to provide transportation, then you need to start paying up. But if there's no push in trying to get the hospital paid, then the hospital may just use this time to or buy time to make that payment to DFEMS.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, you're right. But then again, Senator Dan here went in detail with how it works. But I just want to put an emphasis that that's what I meant with paper trail. And to answer your question, some matters really is beyond our control, like you know, having to transport patients and whatnot that is not insured, or for that matter insured, but the process is taking forever and all those kind of things. But we do put efforts in trying to follow up and see where we stand today as far as having our share of the pie. We try to meet them halfway as well, as long as, like you point out, there's accountability of what we're supposed to be getting. We'll be fine. But then we don't want to create murky water, with the central command. So that is something that we try to work on closely. And if they can provide us those funding in an expeditious manner, I think I'm obligated to sit down with them and encourage them to do so in a perhaps more diplomatic way, for lack of a better word. But thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if that can be included in one of your reports back to the committee on your accounting throughout the years of how many transports you've done and what hasn't been transferred over to the local account. That way we can just include that in our follow-up to these other agencies to try to see what the progress is on those. I think, or that's all I have for now. So we would just like to thank you, Deputy Commissioner and Chief Ogle, for your time here this morning. And if there's anything else that we missed or you felt that wasn't brought up that is important for the committee, then please reach out to the committee. And so,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
Senator
you.
Paul. Thank you, Senator Dan.
all right, you are hereby excused. And with that, we'll take a 5-minute recess to give DPW the opportunity to get settled. Good afternoon, or still good morning. We rise back from recess. Up next, we have the Department of Public Works. And in their budget submission, they submitted a request for personnel for 514,744. The governor's proposal listed them at 533,779. And so it looks like that takes care of their personnel allocation. But their request includes operational activities such as 60,000 for fuel and lubrication, 40,000 for rental of heavy equipment, 30,000 in repair and maintenance, 15,000 each for travel and operational supplies, 10,000 for office supplies, and then 5,000 for freight and handling. They've requested for 23 FTEs, but was approved for 22. And so I guess, at this time, I will hand over the floor to the acting resident director. And if you can just also include in any statement you may have what that one additional position is that you are requesting for. And so at this time, I recognize Ms. Noemi or Mr. Nicholas. I'm sorry, Acting Director Benedictus Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senator Pope, Senator Mendiola. Thank you for the opportunity. As acting director for DPW, I'll try to answer any concerned questions of my capacity. As of this time, Mrs. Noemi Manglonia with me, Administrative Officer 2. In regards to budget concern and question, she'll be more well-versed to answer those issues. I'll try to answer whatever on my capacity if I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting RD. I guess just to start off with that one additional FT request.
Okay, this one FTA trades technician. Actually, right now we have this MOU as a trades technician. He's doing the plumbing, electrical, and carpentry. So what we are trying to do is to open a permanent position so we can hire probably to open for him or anybody that qualified for this position to become permanent.
Okay. If you can, at the end of this meeting, if you can provide that personnel to, do you know if this person's salary as an MOU is consistent with the trade stack if you were to take him on as a civil service employee?
I don't remember his salary. He used to work with us before under ARPA. So when the ARPA, we don't have that budget. So he was hired under mayor's office. So he's already under MOU with us.
Okay. So would you say the salary would be consistent with
Probably
trade
twice-
stack 1?
Yes,
Not us.
trades technician 2.
This person would be a trade stack 2?
Technician 2, yeah.
Okay. Dave, if you can take note of that, and I think what we can try to start doing and is maybe transferring those funds out of the mayor and put them into DPW so that we can convert these employees if it's needed to add additional employees to DPW. But that's something that the committee will decide on. But if that person is currently employed but being funded by the mayor, then we can just transfer that position over. What's your average fuel usage on a monthly basis?
Actually, the diesel, it's from 400 gallons to 500. Actually, it depends to the situation. If it's really raining hard, so they have a lot of works, so to repair the road. So the more they will spend a lot of diesel. And especially, we're not only using the diesel in the maintenance of roads, we're using the in the field, and those people that renting for sewer. So we really need that uh, budget.
But what would you say would be if you at by the end of the fiscal year, current fiscal year, how much would you have spent in fuel?
Um, Probably 450 gallons times 12 months. It's 5,400 gallons, or could be more.
You said 400,
5,400
500.
gallons
Oh, that'll be.
in 1 year.
What about? That's just diesel. You
That's
said.
only diesel. When it comes to gasoline, probably like 250 gallons a month. So 250 gallons a month in 1 year, it's about 3,000 gallons.
What's the diesel rate right now?
It's about probably $9 more.
Okay. And what revolving accounts does DPW have?
We have building code and also solid waste, but right now we don't have any money from the solid waste. There's no transfer in from beautification that we used to receive about 7%.
The building code is that
The building code, the money is from the developer's tax. We're receiving at 2% from developer's tax. And we used to receive before from the old system the certificate of occupancy and also the inspection fee, and it's going to our funding before, but right now I don't see that collection anymore in our
system.
account. Yeah, it's only showing the developer's tax, which is the 2%. Developer's tax is coming from the building permit. So whatever the acquisition, the cost of their building, and we get that 2%.
The 2% for the entire CNMI building.
2%, 2%. Let's say if you are building
Right.
uh,
Yeah, but
commercial,
2% of just Rota projects or the entire
your
CNMI
just
project?
your project.
Rota projects.
Yes, just like if you are building a house and you have to pay your
Yeah.
developers. Oh no, not your house, like a commercial building, and so you have to pay
Yeah.
2%.
So you're saying going back to the compliance certificate of compliance or occupancy, those fees under the JD Edwards, you were
It was-
getting
Yes,
it was
we're
being
getting-
allotted into your account.
yeah,
But since Munis, it hasn't been.
no, there is nothing. So actually, our building inspector, it's been depositing probably like once a week, or it depends if you have collection. So I don't see any in that in our account that his deposits.
Are you getting 100% of that?
Yes, before.
Would you know as of today what would have been the balance?
The account before, oh, the account before that we used to deposit in 3732, right now is a different account. It's, I think, DE009. I don't know what is that actually account. Probably maybe general fund.
But so in 1 year, how much of the occupancy tax do you collect? How many applications go through your office?
Probably actually in 1 month. The certificate, the first certificate of occupancy is $50. Building inspection is $15. At 15 or 25, I forgot
So
actually.
DPW is entitled to 100% of that.
Yes, and sometimes we collect like about 500 probably in 1 month. It is just only, it ranges in that amount, 500 to 1,000. It depends
Depending on when
actually.
it's due, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't know how much you are probably owed if that's still supposed to go to your account.
Um, maybe from October since last year to this month,
Okay.
maybe like
Okay.
maybe 2,000 only because we don't have much. That's
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
But then you may have a balance in the JD Edwards, is what you're saying?
Based in our account inquiry, actually is showing that we have 17,828 fiscal year 22, and we have a transfer in that is 9,000 some, but we have encumbrance like 2,000 some. We have a balance showing here that 24,837. So actually, we are trying to find out actually where is this money because it's just showing in the account inquiry. But as what we understand, they said the money is not there. So actually, maybe this one is not accurate. So our director is communicating with the OMB to find out, where is this money.
All right. Thank you. The 40,000 that you're requesting for rental equipment, is that because you don't have that particular equipment or your equipment is inoperable?
Yeah, there's a lot of equipment that it's unoperable, and it's a lot of sometimes like what happened in the landfill when the typhoon. We don't have machine. We don't have equipment to use it. So I think the municipal council, they find a way to rent heavy equipment from the private company.
But you have these particular equipments that just needs repair.
Yes, we have the D6, but right now the D6 is down. So the cost of the parts is about 19,000. And actually, we don't have budget for that 19,000 last time. So what we did is we wrote a letter to the house, attention to Rep Ogo.
That's the one we already allotted. Did you
Yes.
guys get
So
access to those funds?
So right now the money is still there, the 20,000, but we have that earmarked for that um, parts for the D6. So we are in the process of the bidding. So right now we're just waiting for the procurement.
So that would take care of that equipment.
Yes.
Would that reduce what you need for a rental?
No, it could be. We don't know what could happen in the future that we might need it for rental equipment.
Okay.
So that's what we just.
So we took care of that problem, right?
Yes, we
So
took-
now,
yeah.
what are other heavy equipment that you are gonna need rental for?
Maybe you can answer with that.
Mr. Chairman, the rental proposal actually is for in case there's a disaster
Okay.
and we don't have much equipment. My understanding that's for the rental of equipment,
Okay.
not during a regular operation.
Okay.
Thank you.
So right now we took care of one repair cost for one equipment. How many other equipments do you have that are just waiting to be repaired?
As for now, we only have one dump truck. I'll say 70% condition. One backhoe. I think that's the new one that arrived after the Typhoon Marwar. Our road grader is under repair, need parts. Our tractor slasher is running. Our two riding mower, the Toro, under repair, need parts. That's all the part. I don't really know about solid waste.
Okay. So the 30,000 that you're requesting for repair, is that was 19,000 included in that request?
No, not
Okay.
included.
So these are additional
Yes.
funds needed for that. Okay. Thank you. Floor is open to the members. Recognize Senator Paul.
Thank you. Just so I can understand, thank you for your presence this morning. So I can understand the building code. That's one sub account, right?
Right now, that 24,000, it's in the sub account of 6,900.
Yeah, but you call it building code account.
Yeah, yes.
And that includes the inspection and the developer tax and all of
Yes.
these categories.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm just curious, the developer tax, how much do we collect last year?
I don't really know how much the total in 1 year, but
But you have inspectors that actually go out and check new construction other than for homes, right? I mean, if it's commercial, then they have to pay some kind of developer tax.
this is actually it works. Let's say the Sunshine is building a commercial building.
Right.
Those documents they give it to us, and then we send it to Saipan. They are the one. Let's say
To collect.
Let's say the project is worth, let's say 100,000, and they pay a center percentage. I think about 2% in Saipan. So either they pay it there, and they deposit it there.
Okay, so how much is that last year?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, you're not sure.
how
What
much.
about, so what is the building inspection?
Building inspection? If it's already if the project is done, and then before the issuing certificate.
Occupancy.
Oh yes.
And this is only for commercial again, not for a new house.
And yeah, it's only for the new commercial only.
So the new houses, you don't inspect them?
They inspect, but
You don't charge?
no, we don't charge.
Okay. But do you get to inspect the new houses
Yes,
as they build them
yes.
so that they can be
Yeah, pace by
structurally
pace.
sound? But you don't charge any for the homes, right?
No, we don't
Okay.
charge.
What about okay, so that's building code sub account, and then you have the solid waste. What and also you have your government quarry, right?
The quarry,
Yeah. Where do you
Uh,
is that like revolving account?
the quarry in Sinampalo,
The municipality quarry?
that's under the solid waste. Oh, you mean the quarry down on the under the shop?
You don't make money from there, you don't collect?
No, that actually it's only for supposed to be for the roads to backfill those potholes. That is not supposed to be used for selling for commercial.
Also, like, I thought the public can come and
And
pay to be delivered because we don't have quarry.
no, we used to when no one is selling in the island before, but we already have private company that selling
Suffering.
that coral, and biscuits, and then so we have
No,
to
but
stop.
before when you were the one operating, you were giving quarry materials, right? They were paying.
Yeah, we used to sell, but
You sell, but you put it in this account.
no, that's a problem that all those sales coming from the coral. Now we're selling all the sand or coral. Even the rental equipment is not going to our account. It's going to the general account.
Also, they go to finance to pay the equipment rental. So
No, they pay to us. We deposit, but those account goes to the general fund.
also you collect, and it goes to the general account. Does Saipan do the same thing?
I don't have any
If I were
idea.
to go to rent their equipment, do
I
they collect the money?
In Saipan they don't have heavy equipment.
Rental. But you can, the community can come and rent equipment from you.
Yes.
Okay, and they give you the money and you give it to finance,
Yes.
or you deposit, or you give it to finance.
We deposit. We prepare the transaction that this is how much we deposit.
So it goes to the
Paper-
general fund.
Yes.
How much is that in a year?
I cannot really say, it depends to the situation, because for a while right now we stop, having it rent, because it depends to the heavy equipment. If our heavy equipment is good, and if we have fuel, and we let it rent our heavy
Okay.
equipment.
Okay, let me ask you. Going to the landfill, how many more years is that useful? Our landfill, would you say 10 more years? Would you say 5 years, or would you say when would it be closed down? Because I notice now it's like becoming a hill, then a mountain, then a no. What? How many more years do you think?
I don't have any idea. Probably only we cannot answer that.
Who can answer?
Supposed to be I think Mike Manglonia, the one with us yesterday.
Can you give us that information?
Provide.
Yes, we'll provide the
Yeah.
information.
For me, it looks like it's level already, right? I mean,
Yes.
don't you think it's level, no?
I think more than level. Senator.
Yeah. So, so you know, are you aware that we have maybe I don't know, $10 million, maybe plus or minus for a new landfill? Are you aware?
I have no idea.
We kind of heard it.
It's
I kind of.
EPA money, and if we don't, I'm just bringing it up so that you can bring it to the director and to the mayor CIP committee. We need to use the money. We need to follow up and use the money. And I say this because it's your department, and that money's been there for 2 years already. But
10 million?
56 total, but originally it's supposed to be 12 for Rota, 12 for Tinian. And it's gonna keep going down because as you know, we don't use it and other islands need it. It's gonna keep going down.
So
So
right.
that's why I am bringing this officially to your department that we need to use that money. We need, and I know that OPD, Office of Planning and Development, is supposed to come up with the concept and the plan for long term, but we here on Rhoda, our department leaders have to be in the forefront. We have to put interest into that, right? Our heart into that, so that we tell them what we need. And if we allow them to OPD to be the one to make the decision, I'm not sure that you people we down here would be, our concern will be reflected in the ultimate plan. So I hope that that could be something you can look into, because that also will save operation, right? Because if we have that and we open it, then we don't need anymore to be pushing trash left to right there or bringing dirt to cover it, right? We would have a sanitary landfill. So in the long run, we can save operational expense and equipment expense. You,
Uh, there is a project that supposed to be um, at the quarry debris at Sinapalo, and I think that one is ongoing plan, but it's under OPD.
Yeah, but I don't know even know whether that's the appropriate site, because before they even select it, they have to look at the groundwater. So that we need to do underground water testing to make sure that we're not putting it in where our underground water resource are. And so it's gonna take a few phases before we actually decide maybe where. But I just bring this up. I don't want to use more time, because this is for annual budget, but I want to put that out and say that we can cut expenses if we start working on our landfill, and so we just need to coordinate with OPD. Okay, um, the roads here. You don't. You think? Do you seriously think in your heart that we should close the swimming hole road to the main road? Are we okay? Just shut that down and we're okay. Just go another 5 years, 10 years, and or do you think we need that road? What do you think?
I think, Senator, we still need that road, but the main concern there is all private properties.
Yeah. So if there's an existing road for 100 years and tomorrow somebody claim that they own that land, so it's okay to close it. If that's the case, most of all our roads should be closed, right? Because we
Yes.
have around the island, everybody owns private land there, so we should close it then, and we're okay. I guess my point is, can we work with the landowner and follow up what's the situation and work with, I know DPL under the law can land exchange and the land compensation. I know we used to have money, now we don't have money, but somebody on Rota and Public Works, because that's your road, has to take that and carry the ball, no?
Yes,
Senator
Because
Pope,
because I've been
can
raising
I
this
chime in?
up. Okay.
I just wanted to follow because I know we had this delegation meeting and it was very important for us. And I'd like to just add to that statement. And I know this is about budget and probably completely off the track, but it's true. It's the more serious concern is more of the swimming hole as an attraction. And the problem is that I know this for a fact. Now, if we're gonna go around to try and respond, it takes longer. So I just like to add that to that statement. You know, it's seriously something that we need to consider opening that road for safety and families that are using that or tourists. So I like to just add on to that. I
Oh.
yield. Thank you, Senator Paul.
Yeah, and so basically, I'm just gonna keep it short. Yeah, the senator is correct. Even for emergency, if some fishermen were to get into an accident, now instead of just going through right there, you have to go around. And also, we have tourists that over the years they know that from swimming hole you can drive soft, but then when they drive, all of a sudden dead end, right? They drive all the way back, and now, and that's a very scenic, beautiful road, right? So it's just a matter of we're not gonna fight with the landowners, but talk to them, say, we need to open it up and let's work on getting them paid or land compensated, or like land exchange. And the other option is let's just reroute. Let's find an entryway, maybe just a mile up or half a mile and go across and continue, right? So it's a matter of meeting with DPL and looking at the area there where there's government land, and cross it down so that we can continue. We can go around that because I know that when you go into the O entrance, it really divides the landowners' property. So maybe the landowners are concerned, but we can work with them to go another route around their island, their land. So all I'm just saying is, I think I've been bringing this up already for the last 2 years, 3 years, and I don't see it moving. I bring it up to DPL. I bring it up to Secretary of DPW. I bring it up almost every meeting we have with DPW, and I don't see anything moving. So I kindly ask you to please help out on that so that the tourists also can enjoy that, and even biking or walking, right? It's so beautiful in that area, and for the fishermen, it goes a long way. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Paul. Just a quick follow-up. I know Ms. Noemi mentioned about the...
Mr. Chairman, I think the acting director wanted to say something.
Go ahead.
One thing, Mr. Senator Poe, I come across TSD, si David Manglonia. I think on process, I think permitting agencies are working on it, but the road going up Tagua Hill, there's an access going down north of former Coconut Village. I come across that. I think they're working on that to open the road going
So
down
can
to.
you let us know that next time?
We'll
Appreciate
pitch you back.
the update.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Going back to the landfill, I think the one in San Apollo 2, I think that's just for
Oh, and
green
before
waste.
I leave, Chairman, the reason it's important because we were meeting with broadband, and they're going to try to put fiber optic through that area, that road. So the sooner we address that, it helps out on the fiber optic. Thank you.
Yeah. So again, going back to the landfill, Ms. Noemi, I think that was just for green waste, right? The one in San Apollo 2.
Yes.
Do you know if, I think the land use plan came out, do you know if they have identified an alternate spot for a sanitary landfill? Not yet?
No,
Or not that-
sanitary landfill?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
But should be in that building because they have that proposal of building in that area, down there at that in that bottom of that what do you call that?
In San Apollo 2?
Yes.
No, that's incorrect. Sinapalo 2 is strictly for debris. And
Right.
Mr. Chairman is asking about sanitary landfill.
Sanitary landfill.
That's our landfill.
Oh,
in-
the one in the
Yeah, they haven't identified an alternate site.
um. No.
Okay. I think, like Senator Paul said, maybe get in contact with OPD, Mr. Iglesias. No, I think that was part of the land use plan that they were developing to identify areas to like as an alternate site. And so, if that hasn't been identified, or if you're not aware, then I think maybe to look more into that so that we can utilize the whatever remaining funds are there from the EDA.
Another, actually, I would like to add the solid waste hazardous fee, and we process 2020 that included from 2019 July 2019 all the way to year 2020 December, but they don't get paid for the year 2020, only the 2020, 2019. So if probably if you could help us to.
Yeah. So, well, unfortunately, at least for the last fiscal year and the current fiscal year, the solid waste revolving fund was suspended, so there wasn't any money collected from there. Additionally, OMB is under the advisement that during an austerity period, no hazardous pay will be incurred or owed. And so, if you can identify what period they haven't gotten paid in which we were not in austerity, then we can try to assist your office in following up the payments for those hazardous pay.
Those only working during the 2020 quarantine, and they come to work, and so I provided the timesheet. So
But where's that? Where's their paperwork in the process? Has
I
it been cleared
submitted.
through OPM and OMB?
It was together with that 2019 that I passed. We prepared the personal action and the timesheet, but they disregard the 2020. They only pay the 2019.
Was this during an austerity period?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I think, like I was mentioning earlier, I think during the austerity period, they've suspended hazardous pay. But I know when we came out of that austerity, they should have been
They should be
assessed the hazardous pay for those periods up until the time where we went back into austerity. So if you can identify those dates, and then we'll reach out to
It's in
the
the
authority.
personal action.
Right.
With,
But the personal action that you submitted also included those austerity dates in
the
2020.
austerity that was only during the quarantine they don't have timesheet, but after that they come to work, so I prepared the timesheet.
Okay. Do you have like a letter stating what periods, and other than the NOPA, do you have like a justification sheet or an accounting record of what's owed and what period?
It's only the timesheet.
Okay. If you
Yeah.
can, if your office can prepare a summary um, of all the employees and what period is owed,
Yeah.
and yeah, what you're claiming to be owed during those period, then um, we'll get in touch with OMB and see where that disconnect is.
All right.
Okay. Members, anything else? If there's none, just in closing, uh, again, just to follow up to your report on the hazardous waste, and then we'll also follow up on your revolving fund from JD Edwards to Munis, if that was transferred over, and if not, if it's still available, then how do we get you guys access to that? And then your occupancy tax collections, right? Okay. All right. Well, that's all we have for now. If there's anything we missed, please feel free to reach out. Additionally, any additional requests you have in regards to equipment, feel free to reach out to the delegation, especially with the recent appropriation, that if you're having any difficulties in accessing those funds. But it sounds like you've already started the bidding. So, but if we miss anything,
Actually, we are been talking with Mr. Rufino Maratita when it comes to the position of equipment operator 4. So the equipment operator only, that's all. When they come to reach in that position, there is no, higher up to that position. Like if it's the possible, if the Senate can probably create operator, heavy equipment operator 5.
5?
Yes.
There's a 5?
No, there's nothing, but if it's
No, I mean,
possible
well, it's gonna have to
to
go
create,
through OPM, but under OPM, is there a 5?
there is nothing. But I was just, relaying what Mr. Martita was saying. Probably if the Senate can
Create the.
create, yeah, or
Yeah.
can have that.
Okay. Well, thank you for the suggestion. Maybe we'll have OPM look into it. Oh, sorry. One more thing. Like, does DPW utilize any professional services outside?
No,
Like, do we? You don't contract out for like engineering services or anything like that?
no.
Do you feel a need for an engineer within the department currently?
Yeah, actually, it's good to have engineer in Rota Public Works rather than, the engineer from Saipan is the one keep coming back here and to do the inspection if there's a project on the road.
Is there a challenge in getting engineers coming down whenever you need any engineering services?
Not really.
So they've been responsive in bringing down their engineer. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. If there's anything else that we've missed in today's hearing, please feel free to reach out to any of the members. All right. And with that, we thank you both for your attendance and participation in today's budget hearing.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. You're hereby
Thank you very
excused. We'll take a 2-minute recess. And last on our list, we have the Department of Finance, which is broken down into 4 divisions, but the President Director had identified 2 additional divisions that are lumped into finance and accounting, which is the treasury and the administration. But we also have customs service, Rota, procurement and supply, and rev and tax. Um, we do have a slide presentation copy. And so rather than break down what the department had requests, I'll allow the RD to briefly go over some of the additional requests that are not identified. But one thing I want to state is that we've had the issue of a customs officer as well as a treasurer, which I believe the legislature had included positions. However, that would be in the event the department had identified additional funds elsewhere, then they can fill those positions. Unfortunately, it seems like it hasn't. They weren't able to secure the funding, and so one thing that I had mentioned throughout these hearings is that um, because we have MOUs, because we have customs officers duly sworn in and performing their duties. However, as a MOU from the mayor's office, um, the easiest approach to go about this would be to reduce the mayor's personnel fund allocation and FT allocation and transfer that over to um, Department of Finance so we can get those employees under Division of Customs. And so while we're in discussion, if our fiscal analyst can make that preparation to see how much there is needed to cover any shortfall in salaries if they become custom officers and what they're currently being paid now under the mayor's office, and we can kind of address where that, if there's any shortfalls. The House did pass their version of a budget for next fiscal year. At least for the Department of Finance Rota, there wasn't much change to personnel on the other divisions, but it looks like there was a reduction of 4,900 under the finance and accounting. And then for operations, obviously, the only thing that was proposed is the OPA fee. So I believe your concerns about the customs officers were shared. It doesn't look like it was addressed. And so maybe we can, in moving forward, we can kind of address that issue in regards to transferring these FTEs and funds for these FTEs from the mayor's office to finance. One thing I want to share though with the president director is that when we had a leadership meeting with the secretary of finance, there was discussions made in regards to giving Rota more autonomy in terms of processing invoices, procurement, travel, and all of that. And so we hope that in the coming months that Secretary of Finance will transfer that responsibility to the local level to allow for our finance department to fully operate the same way the central finance operates. And that is that, all the resident director for the Department of Finance would be the expenditure authority the same way the Secretary of Finance operates. And so at least that would alleviate some of the pressure or some of the wait time in trying to get vendors paid in the municipality. And so how that would work is that since we have a municipal treasure account, it's just whatever the Rota is allotted on a monthly basis, it would be as a transfer out of the central government into these municipalities and allow the municipalities to take a much bigger role in performing its duties to get contracts processed and vendors paid, so on and so forth. And so with that, I would just like to hand over the floor to the resident director for the Department of Finance, Miss Avery Hoko Calvo. Just to add to anything that was mentioned, as well as plea her request for additional support. And so with that, Artie, you have the floor.
Good morning, Chairman and Senator Mendiola. Thank you very much for your guys' time. Senator Manglonia, Paul did express his regret that he had to leave. So we will prepare the request that he had from us yesterday regarding the ARPA funds for Rota. I'm going to work with the budget officer for the Rota Mayor's office, who was the former ARPA coordinator for the Secretary of Finance. And so we'll have that information for you after this hearing. Yes, all those points you pointed out is the situation that we have in Rota. And the presentation that I have today, I wanted to break it down into certain divisions because there seems to be some sort of a misconception from our House hearing that the only thing we needed here on Rota was fuel and toners. We felt that the theme of that hearing was being that our government is experiencing a constraint. What is it that we needed for Department of Finance's bare bone minimum to operate? And that's the presentation we had given. However, I did express that we had 5 priorities that we needed them to address in addition to the critical needs of our department to operate. Fiscal year 23, we were given 0 operations funding and only for the OPA fees to be paid. How we've been able to operate and not close our doors despite austerity measures, despite not having any funding for operations is, as I had testified, that my staff is the one funding the operations. And that is something that cannot be repeated this fiscal year or any other year going forward because, you know, we have mandates that we need to meet. It's not, I can't tell customs to close down because we don't have operational funds. They can't stop the airlines from coming in. We can't stop cargoes from being released. We need to assess, we need to collect taxes. We need to process things or else our government will fail to function. And it's very unfair that that burden was placed on our staff. So we decided this year that we were going to concentrate our efforts on our revenue generating divisions, and that is Customs Biosecurity, Revenue and Tax, and Treasury, which is our collection point. For the Division of Customs, you know, I wanted to highlight our projects, which is the new thing that we wanted to address, which is the cultural and cash crop quality control. We've had too many complaints from the island of Guam, and it was also brought up several times during our town hall meetings that the reputation of Rota as an exporter is its most poorest quality. You know, we've had things associated with our agricultural exports with feelings of being cheated. we were, my son, who is a youth senator, he went to speak to one of the vendors at this what is that? This, I think it was a flea market, and he was told that they don't trust anything that comes out of Rota because they're expecting that the outside of the sack is good and then the inside is all rotten or small or has worms inside. That's not a reputation that we want to have associated with our island. And I take that with great offense because I am a granddaughter of farmers. And we all know that farming industry is one of the hardest ways to earn a living. So the mayor had asked us to institute that at biosecurity, and we are also going to start collecting for fees of import and exports. That project is going to require some money because we are going to need to train our biosecurity inspectors. We're going to need equipment for that, and we're also going to need space at the airport in order to accommodate that. You're talking about 14,000 pounds leaving Rota of sweet potato. We can't have that happen right in front of Star Marianas. So that's going to require rental. And if my memory doesn't fail me, rental at CPA is about $700 a month. So we also have a MOU with DPS so that we can address this growing and long impending narcotics problem. And, because we don't have such a huge force, we've essentially taken our inspector and handed him over to DPS, who has more staff and a bigger workforce to address that. So we're very gracious for that, but that puts us at a disadvantage because we can't have that inspector scheduled at any port. He needs to be mobile. We are also working on an MOU with Commerce so that we can have a statistical work group so that Customs, Revenue and Tax, and Commerce, ABTC, and Statistics, we can work together so we could see where our possible shortfalls are in collections, whether we can work together so we could see whether there's any policies that needs to be changed in our department, laws that you guys need to help us with in order to start collecting correctly. Because when we take a look at our number of imports and we take a look at our BGRTs, something is not reflective of one another. And then we look at the numbers for commerce, and there's a misrepresentation of what is happening. And that's not to say that our business community is cheating the government, but I believe that a lot of times it's more of we need to educate, we need to go out and have a better relationship and communication with them. And this is one of the ways that we're trying to address that. At Postal and Seaport, we do 100% inspections. That is causing some problems at the U.S. Post Office because if you guys have ever gone to pick up your mail, you can see our inspectors are there with a desk and a very small space. So when the U.S. Postal decided that they only wanted to release at 3 p.m., that means we have high traffic during that time. Clearance can take anywhere between 5 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on the amount of packages they have or if there's any incidents. We have Customs partnering up with Revenue and Tax and Procurement Services. These guys go out to each other's ports and they work together so that we can reinforce each other's policies. Here in Rota, if you owe at Revenue and Tax, your cargo does not get released at Customs. If you owe at Customs, you don't get a business license at Revenue and Tax. And that's how we've been running and operating for the last 2 years. We've because we've assigned an auditor for the division, we've been able to successfully conduct an internal audit and collect every dollar that we had missed in the initial assessment. So that's something that we're very proud of. And that internal quality control program, we have an asset manager who is a biosecurity inspector. And then we have a customs inspector who is our daily internal auditor for every collection point. So they audit at the ports, then they audit at Central, and then they audit at Treasury. So that's how we ensure that we don't have any problems with collections. The issues that we have at biosecurity and areas of concern is that, 99% of our inspectors were not pegged to qualify as essential service. And I'm glad that you guys are addressing that and going to return them to be 100% funded. We are short-staffed. There is a dire need for promotions. I know it seems like this is not the time to ask for that, but we have inspectors who are 10 to 20 years of service, and when I'm asking them to do things that are beyond their regular duties, they've gained new skills and technical skills and knowledge. There has to be a plan and a time where they're going to be duly compensated. We need an upgrade of our equipment. Seaport and the postal area, they need their own office space. There is a space right next to the post office that is vacant, and we had actually secured that for in 22. Unfortunately, we were having issues with our vendor in regards to the negotiated monthly rental. So we just kind of closed that deal. But that's actually the ideal place to put customs and biosecurity to clear at the seaport. There is a window that is a direct access from the back of the U.S. Post Office straight into the customs office. Instead of having the customers have it released at the post office and then walk it over to the lobby of the post office, what's to stop them from walking out of the door with it? That alleviates a lot of liabilities for us, so we really need that. The seaport we are housed in RT&T's building, and that building is starting to sink. I worry that one day I'm gonna have to be dealing with injuries when that building collapses. Every time I have to go there to have a meeting, I'm almost afraid to come up the steps. So at one time, former Deputy Steve had offered that when the fire department has its shipyard, they will give us an area there. When that will materialize, I'm not sure. We lack any lab equipment that is needed for proper inspections and any personal protective equipment. Those are things that is seriously needed by our inspectors in order for them to safely do their job. The narcotics and contraband, they need operational funding. There's no place in the world that has that section unfunded. We need a storage facility. We have documents and materials that need to be stored. And right now, it's between the airport and our Sinapalo office, but it's not a secured place. These places need to be be put in a cage. We lack, of course, an operational funding. And our biggest concern is that we had graduated two candidates out of the Customs Biosecurity Academy in 2022. I'm sorry, 23. and we have not been able to secure any funding or an FTE to bring those people along. And we had actually, Homeland had paid for them to stay a month longer so that they can have extensive training in intelligence, cybersecurity, data collection, and narcotics and contraband. Then one of the things that I've always been asking for is if you were to take a look at one of our inspectors on their duty belt, they just have their service gun. They don't have any handcuffs. They don't have any level for them to build up to before they have to take their gun out. So that's bothersome to me. So we need funding for that. And I keep hearing things about the possible return of hazardous pay. I would like that you guys consider biosecurity and customs as employees that would qualify for that. The U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, they receive hazardous pay. And these people, they work under distress environments that have them exposed to situations that could cause them harm, illness, or death. And these can't be alleviated by any protective devices. So I believe that they really qualify for that. I do understand that your plan is to possibly take the FTEs from the Rota Mayor's office. The mayor has tried to do that, but then we found out through OPM that they needed to be vacated positions in order for that to happen. And that's just something that was kind of difficult for them because everybody has bills to pay. So it's one of those choices they had to make, whether you vacate the position and hope you qualify and get the job. But please do note that one of the inspectors, one of the MOUs does not have the salary of consistent with the Customs Inspector 1. But I also ask that when you are considering transferring or creating that for Customs, that these candidates are degree holders and they have over 5 years experience as CPA, Ports Police, and ARF. So them coming in at the beginning salary of $21,212 is not something that I believe they deserve. They would deserve something a lot higher than that for their qualifications. I had broken down for biosecurity. I had initially asked for $1 million, a little over $1 million. And we understand our government's situation. So we broke it down into what is our priorities and what is our critical needs, as you can see. And if you take a look at my request for promotions, the only difference between their current salary and those promotions is $14,000. $14,419. For everything that these guys do, I don't think that's a lot of money. The airport, seaport, and the post office, they need computers and printers. How we operate right now is they have it done at Central, and then we tell the taxpayers to drive up to Sinopalo. That's something that, although maybe seen as their responsibilities, it's an inconvenience that seems to be only present here on the island of Rota. And with the our socioeconomic factors, $5 is a lot of money for somebody to come out of pocket for a service that they should be able to have rendered to them at the post office when they're being assessed, or at the post office, or at the airport when they're paying their taxes. They do need a vehicle, and I'm asking for $120,000 because the vehicles that Customs needs actually needs to have an enforcement package. We had an incident where we had to transport someone, and there's no barrier between the inspector and the person that we were being detained. So that poses a great liability and concern for me, especially minus handcuffs. Um, where I'm asking for an operational fund of 300,000, and that's for just freight, repair and maintenance of the cars, the operational supplies, PPEs, training certifications, and a safe. We really need a safe. The safe is not so much for for the money, because we deposit daily. There's no such thing as holding money. This is more of for contraband that they confiscate and for the safekeeping of their firearms when these inspectors are off or off island. But if that's something that we can't do at this moment, we have the other option, which is our critical needs. And that's the annual certification, fuel, toner paper, our IT&E, and the office rental. We're housed at Homeland Security's rental contract right now, and that is going to end July of next year, July 29 to be exact. We've been very fortunate that we've been there zero at a sublease of zero. That's not going to be true going forward. And they had quoted us previously when we were trying to rent the building at something like 60 grand. But they did put in the contract that they would like a 10% increase every year. So if we were to break it down by each office, that runs us roughly about 30,000 each. And I know that
Wait,
just
sorry. You said 30,000 for each office?
roughly, if you were to just have it, if we were to just rent one office for each division, because the vendor wants $1.25 per square foot. So that's roughly what it's going to be, about 30,000
For customs,
for customs
rev.
alone. Customs alone, because for the entire building, they wanted something like 60 grand. And then they're going to increase it every 10% every month. But the 30,000, that's for rental for the office space up in San Paulo and the building next door to the post office. So that's what that 30,000 is for. Why I say we're short-staffed, we have 8 inspectors and 4 armed biosecurity. We have 3 ports of entry, and it is our policy to always have dual custody at every port. I don't count our biosecurity inspectors as one of the 2 because that person is unarmed. And also that person has their own duties to do as a biosecurity inspector. And then when we have our internal auditor and our contraband narcotics inspector and our quality control inspector, these are 3 people that I can't have just pegged to a port. They have to be able to be flexible and be mobile should any situations arise. So if you look at, just even the amount of flights that come in and the number of how many pounds of taxable cargo they need to assess, that's a lot to do for 3 people. We're going to miss something. It doesn't matter how great we have our SOP down pack, we're going to miss something. That's a lot to go through. So I'm really hoping that you guys fund what I put down as the best compromise for customs and biosecurity. And I can see the chairman smiling. But, we really do need these these new guys to come in. They've contributed so much despite being limited with what they can do, but they show a lot of initiative that they are willing to do the work once they have the opportunity to do it. So if we can't entertain promotions at this time, I really hope you at least give us the FTEs for our new guys. I I keep repeating this. I keep taking it on, taking it off on my budget requests, but the K9 program is something that I hope will eventually come to Rota. We do have a kennel that is being used by what is that, DLNR? However, we have to work something out with CPA because in their plan, that kennel is not there. So in our conversations with former ports manager Charlene Manglonia, she did say that they will bring it up in their meeting and possibly entertain having it further down at the one of the ends of the airports. So that's going to become a challenge when it's that far from the terminal. If you guys, did you guys want to have questions after every division or just all at one time?
Yeah, if you're done with this division, I think we'll just, if there's any questions, we'll ask it. That way we can close out that division
Okay.
after.
Yes.
So whenever you're done with this division, then we can.
I think that's everything. Yes. That's all.
Okay.
Okay.
Recognize Senator Mendiola.
I just have a few. I was just wondering if customs and biosecurity are also affected by the 8 hours reduction.
Fortunately, they're not.
Okay.
Fortunately, they're not.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're very grateful for that.
And then I also wanted to ask about this rental. I know you guys got them up in Sinapalo. Should we do not find the funds or the means, would Homeland be able to at least have you had this discussion where are they able to continue to carry this and help you guys out for the next fiscal year?
I can't even give you an answer at this time about that because I've never even had that conversation with the people at Homeland. But I do know that with the manager here, it kind of sounds like that might be a challenge because of how their grant funding works. So I don't want to get too comfortable with that happening. So I'm just hoping that we could have our own contract with them because, even now as it stands, as grateful as I am, whenever I need to do anything with our building, we always have to abide by our contract and get authorization first. And sometimes there are things that are negotiated that might not be good for my department. So
I understand. And of course, grant fundings, we always have to stick to the guidelines that pretty much governs that grant. But I know that in the past we've been successful with communicating with grant as far as our shortages, especially now during our financial shortfall. I know that in the past we were able to migrate some staff into the grants. We were able to pay some of our dues with grant funds. So for me, it's not impossible. It's more of just engaging and just having that discussion with the grantors, to have that understanding that it's not a permanent, more of just more of a temporary fix till we get out of this fiscal challenge. So, and it's probably just something that the delegation myself can probably address directly and just probably communicate in that sense. If we were not able to give that rental rental fee that you're requesting.
Yes. Thank you.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Does Can we move customs back to the airport? The entire division that's within that your current space, just to eliminate the cost of that unit?
Um, it can be done. We're just going to run into fire safety code issues. They, at our current space, that's where all the files are put at, and even there is only so much room to walk around. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to visit this office space at the airport. That one's pretty small. If we were to remove all the desks and have maybe one table there and a computer and they just switch off whenever they need to, yeah, we can fit everybody there. We understand that we will make do with whatever you give us.
Yeah.
We made the impossible happen where we provide services despite nothing.
No, I'm just thinking long term, because I don't think it's going to be feasible to, every year
Yeah.
find an office space to rent.
Mhm.
If we have existing infrastructure that may need renovations, then we can try to find funding to renovate these offices to make it more to be able to operate in a way where you can move all your divisions into this one building. To have, while you were in the process of looking for this office rental space, have you identified any buildings that you can possibly use as a permanent housing for finance?
Thank you. And I really like where this conversation is going. We've exhausted every government-owned building to fit our entire department, and we have not found any. So I have been asking for a new build for the Department of Finance. We had asked the former Secretary David Antalik just to scale down their current specs for their resiliency center. We would love to have a resiliency center here. And yes, our greatest hope is that our staff will have a permanent home. We are the only department that keeps getting moved just about every year. So I would love for my staff to have that permanent place to be.
Have you considered the courthouse?
The court, the courthouse, yes, we did look into the courthouse. The courthouse does not have enough space for everyone to be in. And then they have items in the contract that they are requiring that it's not something I believe we would be able to meet. We won't be able to clean their entire building and maintain their grounds and repaint. And the way DPS is fulfilling their current contract. It sounds like our department of 20 would be able, but if you were to take a look at how each division runs, we're very short-staffed. Every single person has 2 or 3 jobs pegged to them. Nobody does just one thing. So it's, if you want, we could make it fit, but is it going to work? No.
Okay. I mean, maybe that's something that we can start considering moving forward. Maintenance fees or maintenance services is still, it'll cost way less than to continue on with this, the rate that you're currently paying for your space, to consider an increase every year also.
Yes.
And I know the whole BMV is still working on trying to get the building in the village in compliance with the Real ID Act, so that they can, get transferred out. So that would open up more space for finance. Um, so I think maybe that's something that we can also start looking at moving forward. Um,
We did at one point take a look at Northern Marianas College next door. That space,
but they're still charging rental.
they're still charging rental.
Yeah.
It is at a lower amount. The problem is we would have to do all the renovations. And one of the biggest hurdles that we're going to have is the restroom area. There's septic issues there. So wherever we're going to be placed, there's going to be a large initial cost. We've entertained the idea of moving back here, but as you can see, there's no place for us to go. So
Maybe another thing that we can consider. I know that the CIP is wanting to meet so that we can come up with an agreed upon spending plan on the next round of CIP projects. And so I don't know how much we can use of that to even construct a new building, but Tinian, I think part of their plan is looking at like a civic center, like a one-stop shop, almost similar to, I guess, this library, but with more office space, so that there's just one centralized location that people can take care of all their matters, and so yeah, I think that's something to consider. But yeah, again, the goal is to eliminate like these rental payments, and so the only one that would offer free space with attached agreements is the courthouse that I can think of right now. But I guess that's something that we'll discuss with the judicial branch. Senator Manila, you had something?
Just something to consider, and maybe this is just a discussion between you and the Secretary of Finance. I do know that there was funding approved for to construct a new finance department in Saipan. I'm not sure if you can transfer that grant. I'm sure there's a stipulation maybe that may limit that. But when we entered the rental agreement, it's all really just a short-term fix to a lot of our issues. And the problem is that the short-term fix becomes long-term if we continue to try and just keep budgeting for rental. I think the next avenue that we should start exploring is just trying to figure out how do we stand up a finance department that houses all of the divisions that you have, especially dealing with the funding. Really, finance is really the heart of the municipality in terms of revenue collection, in terms of distributions of funds. I don't see any agency. If I was in one of the agency, I don't want to give finance a hard time, because if I need any help in terms of funding, finance is my go-to. So I don't see anybody giving you guys a hard time. So maybe just something that we can consider between Secretary of Finance and yourself. I'm not sure if you can, but maybe a discussion.
yeah. And I just want to say, it's not that we wanted to have a new building or have our own new office rental space. We were making do with what we had when we were being housed here. The problems we were having with that was liability issues, confidentiality issues. When you guys would have sessions here, we'd have a line going out here, and we'd always worry when the cameras turn around, whether people are going to see who is in line or they're going to pick up what's being said. So that's the reason for the move. So we're very, very conscious about saving funds. If you look at our budget history, you will see that we don't buy things like office supplies. That's not even, we put that in the budget, but it's not really that important to us because there's so many things that our department lacks, and fighting over toilet tissue and funding for pens and notepad staplers, that's not something you will ever find in our department. So just understand that when I'm asking for these fundings, we're really thinking very, very mindful. I'm a mother, so the women that run our divisions are also mothers. When we create these budgets, we run it the same way we run our household budget. We don't ask for frivolous and luxury items. So it may look like a lot when you're looking at figures here and we're all fighting for the same dollar, but we're also keeping in mind other departments like fire and DPS and DPW, because we understand that those are critical. But customs and revenue is also very important, and so is accounting and procurement. Like you said, nothing can happen without the Department of Finance. So,
I agree completely. I think it's well deserved. I don't think having a building for finance is a luxury. I think it's deserved and it's needed at this point. Especially, I can attest to a lot of instances in the past where some of these personal informations were being leaked out to social media, and it became an issue. Being finance being here, so I do agree that it's really important for finance to have its own and to have physical security for the documents, the taxations, and the revenues that's being collected. I do agree that it's very, very critical. So I'm not contesting that at all. So just for the record.
thank you.
Thank you. Earlier you mentioned documents and filing cabinets, I think. What's the how far back do you keep files?
We keep 10 to 15 years, and if they are open cases, they keep it for as long as need be. We do every year purge. We have them take a look at what documents need to go, and then we schedule time to burn those items. And one of the things that I am also requesting for in our operational funding is for an incinerator. That's something that we need for safeguarding of our documents, proper disposal, as well as for biosecurity to dispose of materials that they confiscate. So that's one of the things that they need.
Okay. Another thing, I know this kind of goes into revenue tax, but because customs is also collecting money, are they at the same operating schedule as revenue tax where they don't accept payments past 3?
Yes. Yes and no. At Central, they don't accept anything past 3. And the reason for that is because of the time for Bank of Guam. I don't want, anytime you're going to rush something, that's where mistakes are made. So I give our cashiers and the auditors the benefit of an hour to close their sales, take care of any um, balances that are off, figure out the problem if there's any, and then safely make it to Bank of Guam and stand in line and do their deposit before they close. Bank of Guam is no longer going to give us any special treatment to open for us after they've closed their doors. So that hour is not just spent just for them to process it. It's also travel time and wait time to deposit. At Seaport and Airport, that one does not close. When they can take payment, they take payment. Same as the post office.
So they won't even try to address their overnight depository
No.
box?
I don't know. I just know that that's not an option that we have there at Bank of Guam. I could have a discussion with them later on.
Now, I
about that.
understand cash and check deposits, but can't you allow for credit card payments to be made past 3 o'clock?
We can consider that. I mean, I do. It's not something that is just we're really hard on, especially with our situation where at the airport there's no computer now. That broke down, so they send them over to Central, and Central does take payments for those things like that. It's just cash payments. We don't have a safe. You know, and we're always worried about that liability. What the one of the reasons for our audit is specifically that cash was held too many days, and the question was, why didn't you deposit it the next day? What was the reason for the whole, things of that nature? I don't ever want to have to second guess any of my inspectors like that ever again.
Yeah. I just bring the concern up is so that I don't know how much of an effect an hour and a half could have in collections. If we're giving these vendors the opportunity to pay their taxes after 3 o'clock, if that's a more convenient time for them to come in, or wait the next day. But I guess it's just out of convenience also. But I think also a discussion with the bank in terms of fixing that depository, which would kind of address a lot of the issues too, right? With the being able to collect past 3 o'clock and continuing to provide services past 3 o'clock.
Yes. I think as long as we have that communication with our business community and our the individual taxpayers, they've been so far we haven't had any problems. We don't close on austerity days. We have our staff flex their schedules, so they have that benefit of everybody being off on Monday to make that payment.
I know. Yeah, I understand that, but I think it also kind of affects other agencies, right? That collects payments. Do agencies have a cutoff time so that they can drop the money over to finance to process? I mean,
No, they all have to do it before 3 o'clock.
yeah. So it
And
affects every other, public service that collects payments and also kind of putting them on that strict timeline.
Mhm.
But I think maybe also a communication with agencies to start utilizing, like for example, the local gov thing,
The
the
online
the
payments,
online
yes.
BGRT payments, which
Yeah.
is also another easier way. But yeah, I mean we've only gone through the first slide, so maybe we'll go ahead and allow you to
Okay.
continue and then
Thank you very much.
follow up.
For revenue and tax, like I said earlier, along with customs, we're working on that MOU with Commerce, and they still continue their community projects of the tax prep for the Manamco that they do free of charge. They hold workshops, and the enforcement section still does community outreach education. We have an in-house auditor from the island of Saipan who is testing the system, training the staff, and they're auditing our operations every day. Um, in the hopes of one day having a division manager returned back to the Division of Revenue and Taxation, we are giving our staff the opportunity to serve as acting managers on rotation. And that has given us the opportunity to have different points of views of what is our shortfalls. And with every new manager that we had on rotation, we found out something new that was not working or could have been improved in our operations. So I know last hearing they kept toggling with the title of acting because there's no FTE. Yes, that is just something I made up myself, but I want to prepare these women because they are very much qualified to assume that role when that FTE returns. And one day it will, maybe not now, but one day it will. The issues that we have there is they are severely short-staffed. There are 4 women who make up that division, taking on the roles of revenue enforcement, compliance, collections, cashiering, assessing tax, and doing inputting. One of those staff we took out and we MOU'd her to Treasury. She is the one handling the Treasury cashiering. So they are operating with a team of three. We cannot count the auditor from Saipan because he is not allowed to be operational. That's why I had asked for promotions and increases in their salary, because they are cross-trained, section cross-trained, division cross-trained. These women also go on audit at Treasury if accounting is not able to do it. These women go and audit at customs if need be. You know, they work very hard for the Tech 1 and Tech 2 positions that they're occupying. Storage is a problem. We also have the same issues where we have to keep documents 10 years. So right now, I am anticipating that fire is going to be paying me a visit to find me, because we have documents up against the wall and alongside their way to the front door and the back entrance. So fire chief, sorry. We lack an operational fund for that. And we really need that, because that division needs things like official stamps. They need a specialty printer, paper, and toner. We can't not issue out a receipt. So it's basically illegal to not give us any funding, because these are things that we have to do by law. And I'm also requesting that you guys consider this division to increase them from 90% to 100%. These guys do revenue enforcement and they do collections. So, you know, if you guys can even consider exempting them from the austerity measures. Like I said, this division does not close. They rotate their austerity schedules. So they work very, very hard. We listed out what are our priorities and what are our critical needs. And it's basically our priorities is, you know, our personnel, a vehicle, and operational funding. Training and travel is not just a vacation for them. They need to continuously train. They need to go and get, you know, certified for their enforcement badges. They need to keep up to date on what is the new and current tools in their division. They need filing cabinets, freight. They have to send things off all the time. Our critical needs, we broke that further down into something just like training, operational supplies, a filing cabinet, fuel, toner, our IT&E. Yes, I put the rental back down there at 30,000. That's because I don't remember what is the square footage, but just about every room is roughly about that. This is one of those divisions that I cannot have housed with anybody else. I'm the resident director, but when there is an operation going on, I stay at the customer service counter just like everybody else until they give me the green light to come in. Not every information and document is for my eyes, and I understand and I respect that. I was asked what is their daily customer traffic. They average about 25 people every day. So they need more than 3 people. Enforcement is at a standstill because policy requires that to have an effective enforcement team, you need 3 people. And if I'm going to have these women doing their regular day jobs and then acting as enforcers after work, you know, something is going to be missed. We have over 300 business licenses. So we can crunch the numbers on that. It's not enough. We don't have enough people. So that's why I was asking for 3 revenue enforcers, these women to be promoted into revenue agents, because one of the biggest hurdles that we were coming up with is we want to collect, we're able to collect. These women know how to write a collection letter, but because their title says they're Tech 2s, they don't have, their position does not have the authority to do that. That's not an excuse for me, but if that's what it is, I also believe they're qualified to be revenue agents. The person I have acting as the enforcement officer, she's a Tech 2. There's only so much you can do with that title. They fly in a team from Saipan. Between 2 to 6 people come in here. So for me to get a report yesterday that we have no ongoing cases and no cases closed, that's something of a concern for me, because we go out and we have to educate on simple things like the receipt law. We see things that are practiced at the stores that are not right. And we know that we have things here that we need to address in terms of enforcement. So we need your guys' help in that division. That's all I have for that division. If you guys have any questions.
Not currently. I'm still looking over something that we may have done in the past, but we can go ahead and move forward to the next one, and I'll just bring it up after that.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to move into Treasury. So, like I said, with Treasury, the women there, from the manager all the way down to the revenue training, they work that division, and they're cross-trained in each other's divisions. Ria, who functions as the treasury cashier, is also the alternate to the accountant when she's on leave or needs help to process things in the Munis system, and vice versa. Our accountant is her alternate, and everybody is an alternate to an alternate. We're working on having electronic vouchers with the departments for their collection points. That way people can stop driving to DLNR to pick up a voucher, then driving up to Treasury to make a payment. We got to sit down with the other department heads to make an electronic version. That way we can, cut the travel cost for our community. The issues that we have for concern is, we had one FTE for an account clerk, but that one was unfunded. We have not been successful in finding funding for that. That division lacks staffing. You need to have at least 2 people there. Right now, we're making it work by using the accounting team, but that's causing problems in accounting. They have a backlog of 1 year.
Quick question: the account clerk, that will also be the title of the cashier that
Yes.
Ria is currently filling.
Yes.
Because we gave you that FTE, there's no way to transfer the funds that she's currently being paid out of now to fund that position. From what I was told by OMB, there's this thing called conditional employment where they process that transfer over. Is that something that can be done now?
That can be
Since the
done.
position is currently available right now?
The Secretary of Finance would have to do that because Ria is paid out of her account.
According to the budget, at least what's included for next fiscal year.
That she's at revenue and tax.
Right.
Yes, we're very happy for that.
Oh, it wasn't that case last
No.
current fiscal year?
No. She was just, they had just, she was actually one of those employees that we had worried we were going to lose because she was transferred over to the ARPA account. And actually, you were very instrumental in helping us not have her lose her employment. So to see that in '24 she is in revenues budget, we're very grateful for that. And if we, yes, when that time comes to lateral transfer that FTE and funding to Treasury, we will do that.
So what we can do for next fiscal year is remove that trainee FT, right, and continue that accounting clerk one under treasury,
Mhm.
and then just do the lateral transfer. Is that how it would be done?
Yes, that's how it
With
would
the
be
is the
done.
salary consistent with the trainee, the account clerk one?
No,
Do you okay? So all we would have to do, Dave, is remove trainee under rev and tax, and then add the account clerk under finance and accounting, and then just add the additional whatever it would take from the current salary rate of a trainee to an account clerk one salary. That way, yeah, that would secure that position over to an account clerk one. Okay.
Chairman, I just want to note that there needs to be two people there under Treasury. There has to be a cashier and there has to be an auditor.
The cashier again is the account clerk one. So you need account clerk one, and what's the other position called?
Account clerk two.
Do we have qualified candidates to be an account clerk one? Isn't it something that they would have to be an account clerk one for several years before they become an account clerk two? Or
I'm not sure. I would have to check on that.
okay, can you deal with two account clerk one in the meantime, and then
Yes, I would.
see if an account clerk two is if if the prerequisite for an account clerk two is an account clerk one, and you haven't had an account clerk one, then
Mhm.
we would need to establish that now in order to promote that person later. If I'm understanding
I'm not
this,
going to
yeah,
say
yeah,
no.
I know.
I will take whatever I can get.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
This
very
is
much.
all for discussion purposes, and no promises yet, but at least to secure that one position right now, and then consider the second account clerk one. But okay,
Yes. Okay. So I am requesting for a vehicle for this division, as well as operational funding. Of course, that's for official stamps, toners. Yes, I
I
know
see,
that.
Miss. Your Hyundai accent is not sufficient.
No, you know what? The House promised me that they were going to visit our office to take a look at our Hyundai accent. And maybe I can loan it to you guys one next time so you can see that, in all seriousness, that car is not safe. We've tried everything. DPW, we don't even go to the fancy car shop to get it maintained. We save money and we go to DPW. The brakes are not good. The chassis is not good. The AC doesn't work. The windows don't roll down. So it's not even something that is safe for them to drive. Um, the rust is not the problem. Um, we can deal with the rust. There's no AC and you can't roll the windows down. They got to travel all the way from Sinopalu down and back on a hot day. Nobody deserves that. Not at their salary to have to deal with that. Um, so we can continue to try to fix that. I was hoping the last typhoon would sweep it away.
Well, I
Unfortunately,
did
the
see you make
girls.
some efforts in changing the door at least, right? But okay,
Yes, we are
understood.
trying
Yeah,
so hard to keep that thing
thank
running.
you.
But customs has been helping us, right? We ride share. Like I said, we do everything to to cut costs, and that's working out for us. Everybody closes up at one time. They all go together. They deposit it. They come back up. But what about those days when that vehicle is not available? Then what happens? Our accounting manager gets in her own car and goes. That's a liability issue for me. So, um, one car, even from any other department, we would appreciate it. It doesn't even need to be a brand new car if that's not something that can happen at this time. Yeah, our critical needs, we crunched it all the way down to 79,000 for you. And that's just the operational funding to cover the toners and the papers, fuel, and of course the office rental is sitting there again for your pleasure. This section needs to actually start having its own room. Right now, they are sharing it with accounting. The U.S. passport has plans to come into Treasury, and that service is going to require its own enclosed area. So, in its current space, that's going to be a problem. If we were to continue being housed at Sinapalo, we had toggled with the idea like what you were offering earlier to move customs to back to the airport, or have Treasury the passport put in the room that we had secured for contraband and narcotics. That section actually really does need its own room, but we're willing to make the sacrifices to ensure that the passport service makes it down to Rota. So we're trying our best here, Chairman. That's all I got for Treasury. If you guys don't have any other questions, we can move on. Okay. For financial services, our team does weekly department consultation. Our areas, and this is direct access to our manager and the accountant on a daily basis. Our accountant leaves our office and goes into these departments to help them with their processing. We're doing everything humanly possible to ensure that we have a smooth processing operations. We're nearing our closing of our fiscal year, and she's been working very hard, going to every single department to ensure that we are able to close out all our accounts. We're very short staffed. Like I said, there is just one accountant and our accounting manager. And the way we had tailored Munis's approval workflow, initially the accounting manager was not in the plan, but understanding the nature of the resident director's position, I found it important to ensure that the accounting director manager was inserted in the workflow to ensure continuing of our services without having to wait for any resident director's learning curve. That way she's able to give advisements on funds balances and what, most especially those special accounts that has local laws attached to it. So it's been one of those things that some people in the central office found kind of inconvenient because it added an extra step for approval, but that was to safeguard the department. And I believe that is also a plus for other departments to ensure that there's no issues with their funding. So being that it's set up that way, our accounting manager cannot she can't work the system. She can only approve. She's not able to assist the accountant in inputting or processing. So that's one of the disadvantage of that decision. Am I comfortable to take her off the approving workflow to have her operational? The answer is no. I see that as also a safeguard for myself. So we really need another accountant working in there. Right now, we have our admin specialist cross-trained to assist in that division. as well as Ria, who is working for revenue but actually working at Treasury. So we're spread thin. We have an alternate to our alternates is how we function. Um, that's why I'm requesting for a promotion for this position. Of course, if you look at my budget, I always ask for the WGI increases for all my staff. Um, they have increased their technological skills. They have gained so many other um, accolades during their time there. So it's something that I believe they deserve. Our accountant also serves as our technical support. She goes out along with also the administrative specialist to function as our IT supports here and trainer on Munis. So all these there and other duties as applies is starting to go into different positions. Um, and having all those responsibilities has created a great backlog of up to a year. We're starting to close that gap, but it could happen a lot sooner if we had more help. And of course, we don't have an operational funding, and the priorities that we are asking for surmounts into 264, but our critical needs, is drawn all the way down to 134,000. Um, I requested a vehicle for there. So it's one of those hopes where if you don't give me a vehicle in one division, you'll give me a vehicle in another division with the understanding that they're going to share that vehicle regardless of which division it goes into. But they really need that because they do daily deposits. We don't have a safe. We're not. And I know there's talks from the OPA audit that every collection point needs to have a change fund. We haven't had a change fund, and that system's been working for us. That releases us of any liabilities. So I really don't want a change fund. Um, our taxpayers complain about it, but they comply. And we haven't had any incidents. So I don't need any incidents to tell me that I need a change fund. I don't need it. Um, when you see our fuel, we really counted how many miles it takes us, and $25,000 sounds like a lot, but it's something that we need, and we need money for training and travel because Munis is a system that we've come to learn has changes and updates just about every season, and I'm sorry, but we're not a culture that is too much into technology. We are really, really hands-on people. If Saipan has the benefit of that computer lab, then we should be able to avail for that also and not be told that just watch it online. If you were to take a look at that online program that they have up, it looks nothing like what we're looking at. So it doesn't work for us.
So what is our finances? Do we benefit from OIT?
I'm sorry, could you clarify that question?
Saipan Finance has an OIT division, but because we don't have one, do we benefit from any of their services?
I would say yes and no. Our the OIT guys, the team in Saipan, they respond to Rota's needs as quickly as they can, right? But when we have things like technical stuff that needs to be addressed, they're not here. We have to deploy Erica out of her regular duty from a backlog, um, current operations to go out and assist another department with something that's going on with them at Munis. So it would really benefit us if we had our own IT tech here. Um, is what we're doing working? Yeah, it's working so far, but it's at the expense of one person being overworked and our operations being backlogged. So is the team in Saipan addressing our needs? Yes, to a point.
Okay. Thank you.
Um,
One moment, sorry. Recognize Senator Mendiola.
Just wanted to ask about this reconciliation backlog.
yes.
I just wanted to know a little bit more on that. And I know it's probably just shortage of staff, um, equipment. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more on that. I got it as a priority here. So
Yes, it is. It is a huge priority because that causes problems for other departments. When we're not able to pay vendors, vendors do not want to have relationships with us any longer. The backlog comes because you have one person, one printer, one computer, scanning that, uploading it, and the processing time just to do one can take anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how well her equipment is working that day or our internet service. So, you know, then we have that breakdown between the departments getting those documents to us, inputting it into the system. So all those things create a backlog. And then when we do our end here and it gets to Saipan and then they find something else, it's not like we get that notification immediately that there's a situation with that. We find out later on when there's problems for payment or when department comes in, inquiring what happened to this payment. Then we have to call up and pray somebody answers us to find out what the issue is. So those are what creates a backlog. If we had more help, we could dedicate one person to critical departments and another person to, departments like the smaller departments that don't really process a lot of things. And that's what our hope would be, was that we actually have a team dedicated to special projects that need immediate attention, time-sensitive things, and larger departments that cannot afford to have something as critical as our fuel not being paid on time for the fire and the police. So
and thank you for that.
you're welcome. Okay. So the next one is procurement services. One of the projects that we are hoping to launch off is the electrical usage audits. This thing would require our supply specialists to go off for training in the US. We do closing and opening inventories every year, and this one is also mostly deals with the opening and closing audits of the Rota liaison. These two things require travel. The areas of concern and issue is, they need a promotion for that. Asset management system came on, and we're asking our specialists to function as an asset manager when he is not. They need computer upgrades. We had actually procured computers for procurement, but because customs computers went down, we had to shift that priority over to them. So now we are in need to replace procurement's computers. Their computers are very old. I think they're like 5 to 6 years old, and the system needs current computers to be compatible with the new system. Finance did not buy our computers at the regular computer stores. We had ours built, specially built by the OIT team. So we bought parts and had it made. And we lack operational fundings. So our priorities come up to 177,000. We dropped that down to, in our critical needs, to 69,000. That travel expense is not something that we can compromise on. We need money for them to travel to Saipan to close out the year. And if we are going to have this electrical audit where we try to limit the CUC billing of our departments, we need our staff to be properly trained for that. If you guys don't have any questions.
Yeah, for procurement, has there been an audit done on the inventory? Um, or are audits done on a yearly basis to see if we still have these equipments?
Yes, that's what the opening and closing inventory is.
Have we
They
had any serious
we
reports on?
have some discrepancies. I'll give my department for example. We didn't know that we had 9 cars to our name, and these were cars from 1986, cars that haven't been seen in years, and we had to take that out of inventory and have and ensure that that was reflected in the system. So when these guys conduct inventory, we don't just ask the department, where's your document? Till physically goes out and sees it. We work together with the procurement manager and accounting, because we remember all the things that we process. So if you say that you have 2 printers in your inventory and we know we process 6, we flag that, and we require them to answer to that, and we don't process any more printers until you let us know what happened to those few that are in question. So
Have you
that's
had
how we-
any serious marks on missing items from other agencies? And
Yes,
have they resolved these
No.
findings?
we're still waiting for that. So like I said, when we have situations like that, we don't allow them to process any more things for replacement of those items until
But what are
we-
the repercussions of them not having to, or them not addressing it, or justifying these missing items, or even locating these items?
That's something the procurement manager would be best able to answer. I do know that we're trying to work with them, because a lot of these things that are missing are things that were missing long before the time of either the administrative person or the procurement person in that department. So we're working with them to iron out all those details, because it's kind of difficult to expect, like even ourselves, how do we answer to where that 1986 van was? you know Neither of these people that we have sitting in procurement were on board at that time. So we make a report and we send it up to the procurement director, and they take it from there. So we can get you a better answer to that when the procurement manager gets back from leave.
Okay. Yeah, because the concern is we can keep purchasing these equipment, it's bush cutter, whatever you call it, or whatever other items there are, and then somebody walks away with it, and there's no one's held accountable for it.
Yes, I do know that the final end result is prosecution, but
But we
like I said,
haven't
we're
reached
trying.
that stage at any point, right?
We haven't reached it, but of course we understand that that's if it doesn't show up, that's where it's going to be. So we're just, I guess, between procurement director and a procurement manager, they're working it out. What's the next step, along with their resident department heads of those particular departments?
Okay. Yeah, that's something that can be looked at, because we tag all of these, but then
Yes.
yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. And then the last is the administration. And the reason why I separated them is, a lot of times when they're doing the budget, they just kind of lump sum everything into financial services without understanding that that one has different sections. For the administration, we have employee self-care and our community investment project, which is the beautification stuff. Um, we need a promotion in that section because the staff there has an increased in technical skills and more responsibilities. Um, I asked for rental for the entire department there. Um, that's of course hoping that we get a new building. Or you guys could put everybody's rental in there so we can just make one clean payment. And I do stress that we need somebody for OIT, an OIT technician on island. We need that for tech support and troubleshooting, for the FMIS training for the municipality. Especially now that this is a new administration, we have to retrain the directors, and that has become something that really took a lot of time away from my staff. And of course, for cybersecurity issues. Um, our priorities is just a very meek, small operational fund to really just supply the toner and the papers for our office. We try as much as possible to email everything, but things like timesheets need to be printed out and signed. So that's something that is not, that's something that we can't avoid. Reports, I don't require them to give me a physical report. I tell them to just email it to me. I'll figure out how to read it online. My eyesight is suffering because I'm on the computer so much. But other than that, just our IT&E bills and 100 miles that I need to run every month. I actually use my car. I try not to use the department car because we have a car, and I can't afford to be stuck in a meeting somewhere and the staff needs something operational as their destination. So it's mostly for the administrative staff to use. So if you guys don't have any other questions, just one thing I wanted to say about our IT&E bill. We had one cell phone, and that was only for Customs Biosecurity's on-call phone. Long time before we even had any issues, we looked at areas where we could cut costs at, and resident director's cell phone was not something I thought that was a priority. We've even cut lines, that fancy service where you get to transfer calls. We don't have that. It's not an expense that I think we need. We all need every now and again to get up and exercise. So, and the administration does not have a phone. People call me on my cell phone anyways, even if there is a phone line. So I don't believe that's something that we need. But all other expenses for IT&E is very important because people need to contact them. I know we get a lot of complaints about revenue and tax not answering their phones, but that office needs a phone line to be able to communicate with their counterpart in Saipan. So if you guys would consider putting on a cell phone for revenue and taxes, revenue enforcement, I'd also very much appreciate that. So if you guys have any questions, I'm
No. Not. I think I guess maybe some recommendations I can make is like, for example, rev tax. I have been receiving a lot of requests from constituents to follow up, for example, on taxes. And I understand that some of the information is given out to the taxpayer is that, oh, it's been entered, or but then they've waited almost a month or maybe even more. And I understand that our local revenue tax maybe does not have access to see the process or where it's currently at.
Mhm.
but sometimes a simple email to Acting Director Alvarez could kind of address some of the challenges that we're having in the delay of issuing out these taxes. I mean, in the beginning, the governor's directive was to assist our people in the recovery of Typhoon Mawar, and to kind of assist our taxpayers in getting these returns inputted and paid out. And so I have seen some progress in forwarding some of these concerns to Director Alvarez, but I think at this point, if there are any further delays with those that have filed and have no issues, then make that connection with Director Alvarez to see how we can assist in trying to get these payments out, especially now when we're approaching the new school year and stuff like that.
Okay. When the governor had directed that, right, to ensure that our issues here in Rota does not pose a problem to that directive, we had packed all of those tax returns and cargoed it to Saipan for them who has a larger amount of staff to process. So we kind of don't have a control over that. And it is true, there are parts of revenue and tax that our staff here do not have access to. Something as simple as seeing a receipt. We don't have access to that. That's one of the things that I'm very happy that you had that conversation with Secretary of Finance, Rota, about allowing Rota to have a little bit more independence. Like I said, some of the excuses, justifications we were getting is that, they're Tech 1s, Tech 2s. They don't have access to that kind of information. But if we're doing the same work and providing the same services, that shouldn't be a reason, because we're expected to provide those services. We do have them call almost daily. They email almost weekly, and we understand that they have their own backlog. But when Rota is not your priority, we know we have to wait our turn. So we do hope that eventually we would be allowed to function a lot more independently. That way we can close that time frame for our taxpayers.
Thank you. Just one more thing. Well, first of all, thank you for your detailed presentation that you provided to the members. Now, the issue that we have moving forward is, for the most part, the operational funds that we're going to try to see how we can address every single agency's needs. Preliminary numbers show that we may have a couple resources that we can tap into to address some operational needs. But while waiting for that, and dependent upon the final product of the budget that the Senate will come up with, I just encourage you to continue to reach out to the local delegation for any matters that may not be addressed in the general fund, and see it's that way we can kind of see how we can assist through local appropriations. I know you've been great at doing this and trying to reach out for assistance, but maybe continue to submit your report or your requests in a at least to address some of the minor stuff like toners or papers and stuff like that, to allow you to continue to operate. The delegation has in the past appropriate money for operations for the delegation to assist in that sense whenever requests come in. And so any future appropriation that we may plan to do, these are some of the requests that we can consider, especially when we receive it directly from the department heads And so I encourage you to continue to reach out to any of the members of the delegation so that these can be considered when local appropriations occur. And so right now, I don't have any further questions other than we've already communicated with the Secretary of Finance to try to allow finance to run more efficiently in regards to becoming more independent, but also to support the Rota Finance in trying to address some of the needs that are are affecting other departments that rely on the Department of Finance to carry out its duties, such as paying vendors or travel or munis support. And so I'll definitely reach out to OIT as well. I know they've been short staffed recently. I myself have been going through issues with being given, uh, being an authorized user on a particular appropriation. And so these are stuff that we'll continue to bring up with the Secretary of Finance to provide that support in the event we can't or are unable to find the additional funds to hire additional employees to address some of those areas. But, you know, and so we can continue to partner with these agencies to help with assist in that matter. So at this time, Resident Director, if there's anything that you felt you may have missed in the presentation, please feel free to reach out and we'll do the same if there's any questions, further questions that we have. Our fiscal analyst is aware of some of these positions that needs to be addressed. And then additionally, we can, if the three particular individuals that are still in the mayor's office are the same ones you want to move over, then I can direct him to make that transfer over. So that would be the three customs and then the one accounting clerk. Other than that, if there's anything else again that we missed, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much. You guys have a safe trip back to Saipan. I know you guys have to go back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, President Director. You are hereby excused. We'll take a 1-minute recess. Rise back into session, and next up on the agenda, we have announcements. We are communicating now with the Tinian to schedule their budget hearing on next Thursday and Friday. We haven't been able to get through, but we may just schedule it, and then if there's a conflict with the schedule of the department heads and the mayor on Tinian, then we can always reschedule. But for now, we'll set those dates for next Thursday and Friday. And then we'll close out with Tinian. We do have the houses version of the budget so that we can get our fiscal analysts to start the analysis and make the comparison. And then we'll meet again the following week to go over any reallocations the Senate would like to make. All right, and with that, I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second that.
All right, and with that, we are hereby adjourned. If there's no objections, we adjourn at 1:52 p.m.